The crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council shimmered with an otherworldly glow as Ambassador Emily Brooks tried to maintain her composure. Being the shortest person in her room was something she had grown used to on Earth, but standing among the towering figures of 17 advanced alien species made her feel like a child who had wandered into a room of giants. The council chamber's vaulted ceiling stretched nearly 100 meters above, its transparent panels revealing the swirling purple nebula beyond. "The princess's quantum signature continues to deteriorate," announced High Counselor Vex, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with distress. "Rate of temporal decay has increased by 12% in the last standard hour." Emily's attention shifted to the massive holographic display dominating the chamber's center. The image showed a complex matrix of interweaving lines representing Princess Zura's quantum signature. Even with her limited understanding of advanced xenophysics, Emily could see the problem. The once vibrant pattern was riddled with holes, entire sections fading into nothingness. "Impossible," muttered Ambassador Krell of the Synthetic Collective, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of agitation. "Our quantum stabilizers are the most advanced in the known galaxy. This defies all established physics." Emily watched as another section of the princess's quantum signature blinked out of existence. The young heir to the Arxian Empire lay in stasis nearby, her iridescent scaled form barely visible through the temporal stasis field. With each passing moment, more of her became transparent, as if being erased from reality itself. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of alien languages as the assembled representatives argued over potential solutions. The quantum masters of the Helios Confederation insisted their temporal matrices could reverse the decay. The Synthetic Collective proposed consciousness uploading. The Mindweavers of Proxima suggested psychic intervention. Emily remained silent, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. Something about the decay pattern tickled at the edge of her consciousness. It reminded her of something she'd seen during her briefing on quantum physics before taking this assignment. "We cannot wait any longer," declared Emperor Xar of the Arxian Empire, his massive form rising from his crystalline throne. His scales shifted from royal purple to deep crimson, a sign of extreme distress in his species. "If my daughter's condition cannot be stabilized, the Empire will consider this an act of aggression. The peace accords will be void." The threat hung in the air like a physical thing. The Arxian Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy's hyperspace lanes. A war with them would shatter the delicate peace that had taken centuries to build. "Wait," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. The universal translators carried her words to every being in the chamber. Dozens of alien eyes, sensory organs, and optical processors turned toward her. "The human wishes to speak." High Counselor Vex's tendrils twisted in what Emily had learned was their equivalent of raised eyebrows. Emily swallowed hard but stepped forward. The quantum decay pattern danced in her mind, connecting with half-remembered lectures and late-night discussions with quantum physicists back on Earth. "The decay pattern," she said, pointing to the hologram. "It's not random. Look at the chronological progression." She manipulated the holographic controls with gestures she'd practiced for weeks. The display shifted, showing the pattern's evolution over time. "There," she said, highlighting a recurring sequence. "The quantum signature isn't just decaying. It's resonating, like it's trying to match a specific frequency." "Impossible," scoffed Ambassador Krell. "Our quantum analysis systems would have detected any pattern." "Your systems are too advanced," Emily interrupted, earning gasps from several delegates. "They're looking for complex quantum mechanisms, but this is something we theorized about on Earth decades ago. Something simpler but more fundamental." She took a deep breath, knowing her next words could either make her the savior of galactic peace or the laughingstock of the Council. The princess isn't being erased by some external force. Her consciousness is rejecting her own quantum signature. She's erasing herself from existence. The chamber fell silent. Emperor Xar's scales shifted to a deep blue of consideration. "And what makes you believe this?" Ambassador Brooks?" he asked, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Emily straightened her spine. "Because humans have been studying consciousness longer than we've been studying quantum physics, and sometimes the simplest answer is the right one." She gestured at the pattern again. "I believe I can help her, but you'll have to trust a solution that isn't based on advanced technology. Sometimes the oldest problems require the oldest solutions." The council chamber's perfect silence felt heavier than any noise as Emily approached Emperor Xar's crystalline throne. Her footsteps echoed against the polished floor, each click of her boots marking what could be either humanity's greatest diplomatic triumph or its most catastrophic failure. "Explain your theory, Ambassador Brooks," Emperor Xar commanded, his scales now shifting between deep blue curiosity and emerald skepticism. "How could a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel understand something that has eluded our greatest minds?" Emily gestured toward the holographic display, her hand passing through the shimmering representation of Princess Zira's deteriorating quantum signature. 20 years ago, Dr. Jack Thompson proposed a theory about consciousness that your advanced civilization probably dismissed as primitive mysticism. He suggested that consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon, capable of influencing reality at its most fundamental level. "Preposterous," Ambassador Krell interrupted, their crystalline form vibrating with dismissal. "Consciousness is merely an emergent property of sufficient computational complexity. It cannot." "Then explain why your quantum computers can't solve this," Emily challenged, surprising herself with her boldness. "Your technology sees reality as a series of equations. Humans see it as a story. And right now, your princess is trying to write herself out of that story." A hologram flickered, another section of Zira's quantum signature fading into nothingness. Emperor Xar's scales rippled with pain as he watched his daughter's existence continue to unravel. "What do you propose, human?" High Counselor Vex asked, their tendrils weaving complex patterns of intrigue. Emily took a deep breath. "Dr. Thompson developed an experimental consciousness transfer technology. It's crude by your standards. We were decades away from testing it. But I believe it could allow me to enter the quantum state where the princess's consciousness currently exists." The chamber erupted in a chaos of objections. The synthetic collective's representatives projected probability matrices showing near certain death. The quantum masters calculated the odds of success at less than 1 in a trillion. Silence. Emperor Xar's voice boomed through the chamber, his scales now blazing with a color Emily had never seen before. He fixed his multifaceted eyes on her. "You would risk your own existence to save my daughter?" "Yes," Emily replied simply. "Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the right one. Your civilizations have been trying to solve this with technology. But what your daughter needs isn't a machine. It's a guide. Someone to help her find her way back." The Emperor rose from his throne, his massive form towering over Emily. "And you believe you can succeed where the greatest minds in the galaxy have failed?" Emily met his gaze steadily. "Humans have something that your advanced AI and quantum computers don't, Your Majesty. We understand what it means to be lost. We understand fear, doubt, and the desire to simply disappear. If your daughter is choosing to erase herself from existence, then she needs someone who understands that choice and who can show her why she should choose differently." A new alarm sounded, its crystalline tones reverberating through the chamber. The holographic display showed the decay accelerating. "Time grows short," High Counselor Vex announced. "If we are to attempt anything, it must be now." Emperor Xar studied Emily for a long moment, his scales shifting through colors she had no names for. Finally, he spoke. "The human's theory, while primitive, contains a certain logic. We have tried everything else. Perhaps," he paused, his voice carrying the weight of a father's desperation, "perhaps it is time to try something illogical." "I'll need to contact Earth immediately," Emily said, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Dr. Thompson will have to modify his equipment for cross-species transfer. We'll need—" "You misunderstand, Ambassador," Emperor Xar interrupted. We have no time for preparation or modification. The attempt must be made now, with our existing quantum technology adapted to your primitive methods. The chance of survival is irrelevant, Emily finished. Sometimes you have to ignore the odds. That's another thing humans are good at. She turned to face the assembled council, her voice carrying across the chamber. I'll need full access to your quantum labs and your best technicians. And someone better tell Dr. Thompson he's about to test his theory a few decades ahead of schedule. Dr. Jack Thompson hadn't slept in 36 hours, and it showed in the dark circles under his eyes as he hunched over the quantum interface controls. His weathered hands, steady despite his exhaustion, made minute adjustments to equipment that was never meant to exist in the same room as advanced alien technology. This is madness, muttered Senior Quantum Master Zix, their crystalline form pulsing with anxiety. Connecting primitive human consciousness transfer technology to our quantum matrices. The power feedback alone could vaporize half the station. Good thing we're in the reinforced section then, Jack replied without looking up, his voice carrying that particular strain of calm that comes from walking the edge of scientific insanity. Emily, how's the neural calibration coming? Emily lay on the transfer bed, her head surrounded by a maze of both human and alien technology. Electrodes connected to Earth-made equipment fed into sleek alien quantum processors. The resonance feels strange, she reported, like listening to two different songs at once. That's the quantum harmonic interference, Jack explained, making another adjustment. Your consciousness operates on a different frequency than their quantum tech. We're trying to find the sweet spot between the two. The lab doors hissed open, admitting a delegation of Arxian scientists. Their scales shifted through anxious patterns of blue and green as they surveyed the hybrid setup. This is unprecedented, their lead researcher declared. The potential for catastrophic quantum destabilization is exactly why we locked down the lab, Emily interrupted, sitting up despite the tangle of wires. We know the risks, but while you've been calculating failure probabilities, your princess's quantum signature has degraded another 3%. The holographic display confirmed her words, showing Princess Zura's temporal pattern growing ever more fragmented. Through the quantum stasis field, the princess's form was now almost transparent. The human consciousness transfer device appears to be constructed from. The Arxian scientist paused, scales flickering in disbelief. Processed mineral deposits and primitive semiconductors, silicon chips and copper wire, Jack confirmed with a grim smile. Sometimes the old ways work best. Emily, lay back down. We need to finish the calibration before. Alarms blared through the lab. The main display flashed urgent warnings in 17 different languages. Quantum cascade failure initiating, announced the lab's eye. Princess Zura's temporal coherence at critical levels. We're out of time, Emily declared, settling back onto the transfer bed. Jack, do it now. The interface isn't fully calibrated, he protested. The connection could shear your consciousness apart at the quantum level. Better one consciousness than two, Emily replied. Start the sequence. Jack's hands flew over the controls, interfacing human determination with alien precision. The hybrid system hummed to life, quantum processors glowing with otherworldly energy as they synchronized with the crude human hardware. Quantum harmonics achieving resonance, the AI announced. Warning, stability matrix showing unprecedented fluctuations. The Arxian scientists moved to shut down the equipment, but Emily had anticipated this. The lab doors sealed with a heavy thunk. Emergency protocols engage, she announced. Only Dr. Thompson's credentials can override now. This is a violation of every safety protocol. Senior Quantum Master Zix began. Sometimes you have to break the rules to break through. Jack cut them off. He turned to Emily, his expression grave. The connection will be rough. Your consciousness will be trying to operate on both quantum and classical levels simultaneously. No human mind has ever attempted this. Emily managed a smile. Then I'll be the first, just like always. The quantum processor's hum rose to a fever pitch. Exotic energy coursed through the hybrid connections, making the air itself seem to vibrate. Consciousness transfer initiating in 10 seconds, the AI announced. Warning: quantum stability approaching theoretical limits. Emily, Jack said quietly, if this works, you'll be navigating purely on instinct. Everything we theorized about quantum consciousness, you'll be testing it all in real time. Good thing humans are excellent improvisers, Emily replied. Her voice steadied, despite the fear churning in her gut. Start the countdown, Jack. Let's go save a princess. As the quantum field began to envelop her, Emily caught one last glimpse of the lab. The Orcsian scientists watched in fascinated horror, their scales flickering between fear and hope. Jack's fingers danced across the controls, conducting an impossible symphony of human and alien technology. Then everything dissolved into quantum probability, and Emily Brooks began her journey into the space between spaces. Consciousness without form, thought without structure. Emily existed everywhere and nowhere, her mind stretched across an infinity of quantum states. The advanced aliens had tried to map this realm with mathematics and logic, but they had missed its true nature. This wasn't a place of equations. It was a storm of raw possibility. Colors that had no names in any human language swirled around her. Probability waves crashed like ocean breakers against shores of alternative timelines. Each moment fractaled into infinite variations, each choice creating new branches of reality that sprouted and withered like quantum flowers. Focus, Emily thought, or perhaps spoke, or maybe just existed the concept into being. Find the pattern. The alien scientists had searched for order in this chaos, but Emily wasn't looking for order. She was looking for story. In this quantum soup of possibility, she began to recognize echoes of consciousness, fragments of Princess Zura's dispersing mind. A memory floated past like a soap bubble. Young Zyra learning the weight of her royal duties, her scales shifting with anxiety as ancient tutors droned about galactic politics. Another showed her first quantum physics lesson, her mind expanding to grasp concepts that would drive most beings mad. Princess Zyra, Emily called out, her thoughts rippling through the quantum foam. I'm here to help you. The response came not in words but in waves of emotion. Fear, doubt, crushing responsibility. Each feeling carried enough force to shatter a normal consciousness. But humans had been dealing with emotional overwhelm since they first gained self-awareness. A dark presence stirred in the quantum void. Emily felt it before she saw it. A mass of collapsed possibilities, of choices unmade and paths untaken. It moved through the quantum realm like a shark through deep water, and Emily suddenly understood why the advanced aliens have failed here. Their logical minds couldn't comprehend something that existed purely as emotional resonance. You don't belong here, the presence communicated, its thoughts carrying the weight of collapsed probability waves. This is a realm of pure quantum possibility. Your primitive consciousness cannot survive here. Emily stood her ground in a place where standing had no meaning. Maybe not, but I understand something you don't. Something even Princess Zura hasn't realized yet. The presence swirled around her, trying to find purchase on her consciousness. But human minds were slippery things, evolved to dance between certainty and doubt, between fear and courage. You understand nothing, the presence insisted. The princess chose this, chose to dissolve her quantum signature rather than bear the weight of imperial responsibility. The probability of her choice was absolute. Emily laughed, the sound creating ripples through nearby probability waves. That's your mistake right there. Humans don't believe in absolute probabilities. We believe in choice, in change, in the impossible becoming possible simply because we decide it should be. She gathered her consciousness, focusing it like a lens. The quantum realm tried to disperse her thoughts, to scatter them across infinite possibilities. But human minds were built for focus, for pushing through difficulty, for finding meaning in chaos. Princess Zyra, she called again, stronger this time. Your father didn't send advanced AI or quantum computers to find you. He sent me, a human, because sometimes the most complex problems need the simplest solutions. The quantum realm shuddered. Emily felt Zera's consciousness responding, drawn to the strange stability of human thought. In a place where everything was probability and potential, the stubborn certainty of human determination stood out like a lighthouse in a storm. It's too much. Zera's thoughts whispered through the void. The responsibility, the expectations, the weight of an empire. Then let's talk about that, Emily replied, drawing the princess's fragmenting consciousness toward her. Not as quantum patterns or probability waves, but as two people who understand what it means to feel overwhelmed. The dark presence surged forward, trying to disrupt their connection. The princess made her choice. The quantum collapse is inevitable. Emily smiled in a place where smiles had no meaning. Let me tell you something about humans, princess. We specialize in changing the inevitable. The quantum realm blazed with new energy as Emily began to weave a connection between her consciousness and Zera's dispersing mind. She would show the princess something the advanced aliens had forgotten, that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or mathematics. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to reach out and say, "You're not alone." The quantum realm shimmered with fractal patterns as temporal ghosts emerged from the void. Each one wore Princess Zera's form, but they were echoes of choices unmade, versions of her that had already chosen to fade from existence. They surrounded Emily and the fragmenting consciousness of the real Zera, their forms rippling with distorted probability waves. "Look at how peaceful we are," one temporal ghost whispered, its voice carrying the weight of infinite relief. "No more expectations, no more responsibility, no more fear of failure." Emily felt Zera's consciousness wavering, drawn toward these phantom versions of herself. The dark presence in the void grew stronger, feeding off the princess's doubt. "That's not peace," Emily projected forcefully, her human anger creating unexpected ripples through the quantum foam. "That's surrender, and humans don't believe in surrender." The temporal ghosts recoiled from her emotional outburst. In this realm of pure quantum probability, human emotions acted like stones thrown into a probability pool, creating waves that disrupted the careful patterns of quantum decay. "Your primitive consciousness cannot comprehend the complexity of our choice," the ghosts spoke in unison, their voices harmonizing with the void's dark resonance. "Each of us calculated the probabilities. Each of us understood the weight of imperial responsibility. Each of us chose this end." Emily reached out to the real Zera's wavering consciousness, creating a bridge of pure human stubbornness against the quantum tide. "You want to talk about complexity? Try being human. Try living every day knowing you're one tiny speck in an infinite universe, and still choosing to matter anyway." The quantum realm around them shifted, responding to the strength of her conviction. Emily's consciousness, operating on what the aliens would call primitive neural patterns, began to create something impossible: stability in chaos. "Look," Emily commanded, pulling up her own memories. She showed Zera images of human history, cave painters creating art when survival was all that mattered, explorers sailing into unknown waters, scientists pursuing truth against all odds, ordinary people standing up to impossible challenges simply because it was right. "Your advanced civilization sees consciousness as quantum equations," Emily continued, her thoughts cutting through the ghost's whispers. "But humans, we see it as a story. And in every human story, the hardest choice is often the right one." The dark presence surged forward, trying to disrupt her connection with Zera. "The princess's quantum decay is inevitable. The probability matrices are absolute." Emily laughed, the sound sending shockwaves through nearby probability waves. "Inevitable. Let me tell you what humans think about inevitable. We went to the moon with less computing power than a modern kitchen appliance. We cured diseases that were supposed to be incurable. We looked at the impossible and said, 'Watch me.'" She felt Zera's consciousness strengthening, drawn to the raw determination in her words. The temporal ghosts flickered, their certainty wavering. But the responsibility, Zyra's true consciousness finally spoke, her thoughts carrying royal dignity even in their fear. The entire empire depends on me. One wrong decision could affect billions of lives. Yes, Emily agreed, surprising the princess. It's terrifying. It's overwhelming. It might be the hardest thing you'll ever do. She paused, gathering her thoughts into a focused beam of pure human conviction. But you know what? That's exactly why you should do it. The quantum realm trembled as Zyra's consciousness began to resonate with Emily's determination. The temporal ghosts started to fade, their probability patterns disrupted by the princess's strengthening will. The calculations, the dark presence began. To hell with the calculations, Emily shouted, her defiance creating new quantum ripples. You want to know the real difference between humans and advanced beings. We know that some things can't be calculated. They have to be felt, chosen, lived. She reached out to Zyra's consciousness, offering not advanced quantum theories or probability matrices, but something far more powerful, simple human understanding. You're afraid, Emily said softly. That's okay. Every leader in human history was afraid, but they led anyway, not because they were certain, but because they chose to be uncertain and brave at the same time. The quantum realm blazed with new energy as Zyra's consciousness began to stabilize, anchoring itself to Emily's unwavering determination. The temporal ghosts dissipated one by one, their surrender no longer inevitable but simply one choice among many. And in the chaos of quantum probability, a princess learned something her advanced civilization had forgotten. That sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is simply the courage to choose existence over oblivion. In the swirling maelstrom of quantum possibility, Emily and Princess Zyra began the delicate work of rebuilding. The princess's quantum signature lay scattered across probability space, like fragments of a shattered mirror, each piece reflecting a different aspect of her consciousness. The dark presence had retreated but hadn't disappeared, hovering at the edges of their awareness like a storm waiting to break. How do we begin? Zyra's thoughts rippled through the void. The quantum matrices are too complex, the probability patterns too scattered. Emily's consciousness pulsed with gentle amusement. First lesson in human problem solving. When the big picture is too overwhelming, start with something small. She focused on a nearby quantum fragment, a memory of Zyra's first diplomatic ceremony. The princess had been nervous, her scales shifting through anxious patterns as she greeted ambassadors from 17 worlds. Tell me about this day, Emily encouraged. Not the diplomatic protocols or the political implications. Tell me how it felt. I was terrified, Zyra admitted, her consciousness brightening with surprise at her own honesty. I kept thinking everyone could see right through me, see how unprepared I was. But they didn't, did they? Emily guided the memory closer, weaving it back into the princess's quantum pattern. You stood tall anyway. That's what leadership really is, being scared and doing it anyway. The quantum realm shimmered as another fragment drew near, a lesson in advanced physics. Emily watched in fascination as mathematical concepts far beyond human understanding danced through the probability waves. Your mind is incredible, Emily observed. The way you see these patterns, it's beautiful. But incomplete, Zyra's consciousness dimmed. There's so much more to learn, so many responsibilities to master. Second lesson in human problem solving, Emily projected warmly. Nobody's ever completely ready. We learn by doing, by trying, sometimes by failing. That's not weakness, it's how we grow. Together, they gathered more fragments. Each memory, each piece of knowledge, each experience began to resonate with new meaning as they examined it through their combined perspectives. Emily's human insights helped Zyra see her own story in a new light, while Zyra's advanced understanding gave Emily glimpses of quantum beauty she'd never imagined. The temporal resonance is stabilizing, Zyra observed, her consciousness growing stronger. But these patterns, they're not following any known quantum protocols. Emily laughed, the sound creating sparkles of possibility in the void. That's because we're not following protocols. We're following something humans discovered a long time ago, the power of a good story. She drew the fragments into a new configuration, not trying to force them into rigid patterns, but letting them find their natural connections. Every human culture has stories. They're how we make sense of the world, how we find meaning in chaos. Your quantum signature isn't just data, it's the story of who you are. The dark presence stirred again, sending ripples through the quantum foam. The probability matrices cannot be restructured this way. The quantum decay patterns are absolute. Oh, be quiet. Emily snapped, her irritation creating unexpected stability in the chaos. Look around you. We're already doing what you said was impossible. Zara's consciousness flared with sudden understanding. The human emotional response. It's creating quantum anchors. Their primitive neural patterns actually stabilize probability waves through pure belief. Less analyzing, more believing, Emily encouraged. Your advanced civilization forgot something important. Sometimes you have to stop calculating and just leap. Together, they continued weaving Zara's quantum signature back together, not in the rigid patterns her civilization would have attempted, but in flowing, organic structures that combined advanced quantum physics with human intuition. Each fragment found its place not through mathematical certainty, but through the resonance of meaning. There's still so much uncertainty, Zara observed as her consciousness grew more coherent. So many variables we can't control. Third lesson in human problem solving, Emily replied, her own consciousness glowing with pride at her students' progress. Uncertainty isn't your enemy, it's your canvas. It's the space where new possibilities are born. The quantum realm around them began to pulse with new energy as Zara's reconstructed consciousness grew stronger. The princess was learning to dance with chaos instead of trying to control it, to embrace uncertainty as a source of strength rather than weakness. And in that moment, watching Zara's quantum signature blaze with renewed purpose, Emily understood something profound about both their species. Advanced civilization or not, the greatest achievements never came from perfect certainty. They came from the courage to believe in possibility. The path back to normal space-time crystallized before them like a bridge of frozen lightning, each quantum step a precarious balance between existence and void. Emily could feel the strain on her consciousness as she helped guide Princess Zara's restored quantum signature toward reality. The probability corridor is destabilizing. Zara's thoughts carried notes of concern. The quantum flux won't support both our consciousness patterns at full coherence. Emily had already realized this. The math, even through her limited human understanding, was unforgiving. The bridge home could carry the weight of one fully stabilized consciousness or two fragmented ones. Neither option guaranteed survival. You need to go first, Emily projected, her thoughts steady despite the quantum turbulence building around them. Your empire needs you. No. Zara's consciousness flared with royal authority. Your primitive neural patterns are already showing signs of quantum decay. If you remain here. Fourth lesson in human problem solving, Emily interrupted, managing a smile in a place where smiles had no meaning. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting. It's knowing what's worth sacrificing for. The quantum realm shuddered around them. In the physical world, Emily knew alarms would be blaring through the lab. She could almost see Jack Thompson's hands flying over the controls, trying to maintain the connection as her consciousness began to fragment. Your mind will be torn apart at the quantum level, Zara protested. The temporal dispersion alone will probably hurt like hell, Emily agreed cheerfully. But humans are surprisingly good at surviving things we shouldn't. She gathered her remaining strength, preparing to channel her quantum stability into Zara's consciousness. Besides, someone needs to hold the bridge steady while you cross. The dark presence swirled at the edges of their awareness, seeking any weakness in their resolve. The human consciousness cannot endure quantum dispersal. The probability of survival approaches zero. You still don't understand humans at all, do you? Emily's thoughts rang with defiance. We look at impossible odds and say, "Watch me." We stare into the void and dare it to blink first. And sometimes, she began the dangerous process of transferring her quantum stability to Zira. Sometimes we bet everything on a single moment of courage. Zira's consciousness resonated with a complex mixture of emotions: gratitude, admiration, and something closer to human friendship than her advanced civilization had ever known. The Empire will remember this sacrifice. Don't remember the sacrifice. Emily's thoughts were growing harder to hold together. Remember the lesson. Remember that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the right one. Remember that strength isn't about having all the answers. It's about facing the questions with courage. The quantum bridge trembled as Emily poured more of her stability into Zira's pattern. Her own consciousness began to scatter like leaves in a temporal wind. She caught fragments of the physical world through the quantum haze, Jack's voice shouting commands, alien instruments screaming warnings, the Emperor's scales shifting through colors of hope and fear. "Go," Emily commanded, using the last of her coherent thought to push Zira toward the threshold of normal spacetime. Show the galaxy what happens when advanced civilization remembers its heart. Zira's consciousness passed through the quantum barrier, her restored pattern blazing with newfound strength. But as the princess crossed over, she did something unexpected. She reached back through the quantum void and caught hold of Emily's fragmenting mind. Fifth lesson. Zira's thoughts rang clear through the chaos. Sometimes the most primitive solution is the most powerful one. Using techniques that defied her civilization's quantum physics, the princess wove a lifeline of pure consciousness back through the void. It wasn't based on advanced calculations or probability matrices. It was based on something simpler and stronger: the unwillingness to let go of a friend. As Emily's consciousness began to dissolve into quantum probability, she felt Zira's grip hold firm. The princess was using her newly restored quantum signature as an anchor, refusing to let Emily's mind scatter into the void. In that moment, suspended between existence and oblivion, Emily understood the final irony. She had come to teach Zira about human determination, but in the end, the princess had learned the lesson too well to let her teacher go. 3 weeks after the quantum transfer, Emily Brooks stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Council station, watching the purple nebula swirl beyond the crystalline walls. Her perception had changed since her return. She now saw not just the nebula's visible beauty, but the quantum possibilities that shimmered beneath reality itself. The quantum echoes are permanent, Dr. Jack Thompson said, studying the readings from his modified scanner. Your consciousness is operating on multiple quantum levels simultaneously. According to everything we know about human neural patterns, this should be impossible. Emily smiled, watching probability waves dance through the nebula's cosmic gases. Maybe we need to update what we know about human neural patterns. The door whispered open, admitting Princess Zira. The heir to the Arxian Empire moved with renewed confidence, her scales shifting through patterns of joy and purpose. Behind her came Emperor Xar and a delegation of the galaxy's most renowned quantum physicists. The implications are staggering, Senior Quantum Master Zix announced, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. A consciousness operating across multiple quantum states without technological assistance. The research possibilities. We'll have to wait, Emily interrupted gently. There are more important things to focus on first. Zira stepped forward, her scales rippling with colors that Emily could now read as clearly as human expressions. You've changed our understanding of everything. The quantum physics community is in chaos. The philosophical implications alone are exactly what everyone's missing, Emily finished. She turned to face the assembled delegates. Your civilization's advanced so far, reached such heights of technological achievement, that you forgot something fundamental. Something humans never lost. And what is that? Emperor Xar asked, his scales showing genuine curiosity. That the universe isn't just equations and probability matrices, Emily replied. "It's also heart and courage, and the willingness to believe in impossible things. Your quantum computers can calculate 1,000,000,000,000 possibilities, but they can't teach you how to choose between them. That takes something else, something more human." Through her enhanced perception, Emily watched revelation ripple through the quantum signatures of the assembled aliens. They were beginning to understand what her ordeal had proven: that consciousness wasn't just an emergent property of sufficient complexity. It was something deeper, something that could shape reality itself through pure belief and determination. "The Arxian Empire would like to propose a new initiative," Zyra announced formally. "A program to combine our advanced quantum understanding with human psychological and philosophical insights. Ambassador Brooks, we would be honored if you would lead this effort." Emily's quantum-enhanced senses detected the layers of meaning beneath the princess's words. This wasn't just about scientific research. It was about building bridges between different ways of understanding reality itself. "I accept," Emily said, "on one condition." She gestured to Jack, who had been quietly monitoring her quantum state. "Dr. Thompson's theories about consciousness were dismissed by your advanced civilizations, but they were the foundation that saved the princess. He leads the scientific team." Jack looked up in surprise, but Zyra was already nodding. "Agreed. Perhaps it's time we learn to listen to ideas our quantum computers label as primitive." Through the quantum possibilities that now overlaid her vision, Emily saw glimpses of potential futures branching out from this moment. She saw human determination and creativity combining with advanced alien technology to solve problems neither civilization could handle alone. She saw bridges being built not just between species, but between different ways of understanding reality itself. "There's an old human saying," Emily told the assembled delegates. "The more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how much we don't know. Your civilizations mastered quantum physics, but humans, we mastered the art of facing the unknown with hope." She turned back to the nebula, watching both its physical beauty and its quantum dance of possibility. Her consciousness, forever altered by her journey through the quantum void, now straddled both worlds: the rational and the intuitive, the calculated and the felt. "That's the real lesson here," she concluded. "The universe isn't just made of particles and waves, of calculations and probabilities. It's also made of stories and courage, and the determination to believe in better possibilities. And sometimes, just sometimes, the simplest truths are the most powerful ones of all." Beyond the crystalline walls, the nebula continued its eternal dance, its purple gases swirling with both scientific certainty and infinite possibility. And in that sight, both human and alien observers began to understand a truth as old as consciousness itself: that the greatest discoveries come not from choosing between different ways of seeing the universe, but from learning to see with all of them at once.